Nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! So nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds.
Jonathan Herzog, my friend. Last time we had you on the show, it was a very different time in the Yang 2020 campaign.
Indeed. Oh goodness, what a couple months it's been.
I know, and you saw. I guess what was that? That must have been a pretty tough night for you, because you probably were up in New Hampshire, or you were at least in New England.
Yeah, we went from Iowa to New Hampshire. We just went back to back. It was painful. It was devastating. It was just shocking. It all kind of happened so quickly, but I feel like we kind of went through all the stages of denial and grief, and then resilience and rebuilding and recognizing that this was really just the beginning. So it's true.
Now the fight goes on the streets of the Upper West Side.
Yes, indeed. Here we are.
So when we were talking, you were saying, hey, I'm focused on Andrew's campaign. Of course, I'm running. There'll be a time for me to talk more about that and focus more of my efforts there. And it sounds like that time has come.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But this is the time to really dive deep and down ballot efforts and get some wins on the board. Show that Yang Gang is here to win, not just drive a conversation forward, but really get these policies across the finish line. So we're on the streets, we're doing signature gathering, and we are on our way to getting on the ballot and getting this election in the bag.
So how close are you with the required number of signatures?
Yeah, so we actually, we just certified the legal minimum yesterday. And so we are about 40% of the way there. And we have about 2.5-3 more weeks. So we're going to do it. It's going to be a lot more hard work out in the streets, but we're going to get it done.
So when you said you had the legal minimum, how do I reconcile that with that you also said like you've got 40% done? Like what's the game plan?
Totally. So I'll give you an example. So when we did this for Yang back in January, New York has all these prickly rules. And so there's a legal minimum threshold in the presidential case of like 5,000 signatures, right? And then there was presidential and delegate signatures and so on. But because there's all these lawyers and they like to go through the signatures and check the dates and challenge you and all sorts of fishy things, we actually collected 40,000 signatures for Andrew across the entire state for our delegate slates in every of the 27 districts and for Andrew. So for the congressional, we're collecting 5,000 just in one of the districts, which is the 10th district where we're running.
Got it.
So it's just New York politics being New York politics.
So you're basically going to pile on more than you need just in case people challenge some of the signatures. Is that to have buffer or something, or?
Exactly. Yeah. So we have people and passion, and other folks have money, and what that money is spent on sometimes is challenging challengers who are trying to get on the ballot. That way they don't actually have to face a competitor in the primary election.
Got it. And so what's your main campaign message these days? What are you focusing on in terms of conversations with voters?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same stuff, really. I mean, like, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Like, we have the vision, we have the blueprint. People get it. Actually, one of the most common things you'll hear here in New York, is we're on the West Side, is everyone has all this buzz around Andrew being mayor of New York. And so he's actually on the petitions himself in the vacancy committee, which means like if I die or something, he gets to be it. And so they're always like, oh, like, tell Andrew he's got to run for mayor. So it's the same message. It's just communicating it to a very different demographic here in the city.
So you mentioned that other people running for Congress in this district have a little more resources than you might have in terms of the dollars and cents. Like, how big of a difference is this? Like a David Goliath thing, or are you just like a little bit behind? What's it like?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There actually are some parallels just in the data. If you looked at the 2018 New York 14 district, and so that was the famous Alexandria race. And so there's some similarities in we both have about 720,000 people in the district, but only 3% of people vote in the primary because it's in the middle of June. It's 3 months after the presidential election. And we have a multi-decade incumbent who's never faced a serious primary challenge. In our case, the #2 Democrat in the House. And in Alexandria's case, she was outspent 10-1.
Yeah.
Crowley had $3 million from corporate PACs and lobbyists and all sorts of groups. And she actually only had a surge at the end from May to June. That's when she raised the bulk of her ceiling of $300,000. That was it. Because the margins in these races, she won by 4,000 votes. And that's what gives you the seat, because only 30,000 people vote in the primary altogether.
Yeah.
So that when you get that tiny margin, you get 2% of the vote, you win the congressional seat. Because in the fall, whoever has the D next to their name gets 80% of the vote.
Right.
That's the madness.
That is so nuts. So she won with 300 grand. Is that what you're saying to me?
Yep. This is the craziness.
You're talking about the AOC.
Yes.
Like the international figure that she is now, got there with 300. Well, so
yeah,
what?
And that was only literally the last month. That's when all the money came in.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, maybe we can get you your 300 before the last month. What is how much are you looking to raise? Like, do you have any goals coming up?
Yeah. So our target that it has been extended to tomorrow is to hit our 10K, and we are almost there. But the goal here is to get on the ballot and stay on the ballot. And again, it's just because of those challenges from the incumbents, and that's why we're hitting that $10,000 fundraising target by tomorrow, so that we have the funds to get on the ballot and stay on it. Because that is the real hurdle in this race. If you get on the ballot in New York 10, that is a story in and of itself.
Really?
People have spent up to $500,000 running over years not being able to make the ballot because they don't have the passion and the grassroots team on the ground that the Yang Gang has.
Yeah. All right. So you're trying. How close are you to the 10,000?
Yeah. So we are 60% of the way there.
You're 60%. And then where do is it? They go to Herzog 2020. Is that where they do it?
Yeah. So it's on. If you're on Twitter, it's on Twitter. But also Herzog2020.com has the links there. Yeah. Anywhere on the internet.
All right. Let's see. I'm going to Herzog 2020.
On
That's
the top
you.
right.
So I click on here.
Yes.
I see. Oh, look, it's got my credit card. How about we'll just 18. Let's do a lucky number.
Yes.
I'm not going to leave a tip because I have.
Don't leave that for Apple. That's okay.
I have misgivings about the Democratic Party, but I'm gonna. Let's see. It says thank you for your patience. Maybe you're getting so much money. There you go. That's how easy it was. Oops.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So everybody that's watching this now or on replay later, that's all you need to do. You just go to Herzog 2020, click a couple buttons, and hook a brother up. And hope. What are you gonna do with some of this money, Jonathan? Like, where does it go?
Yeah, so literally,
I should have asked you that before I donated just now. But.
Totally, yeah. So you can see what I'm holding. I don't want to show all the addresses, but I have papers, legal size petitions, I have clipboards, I have these snazzy business cards, and so it goes into getting this to all the folks who are gathering all around here, and then also to stay on the ballot. So it's actually like a legal process that we file with the Board of Elections. And if they challenge our petitions, they take us to court.
So,
So
who's going to challenge? Who's going to challenge your petitions? Is it the incumbent? Is that basically how it works?
it's basically anyone who has, the way and the will. Actually, anyone literally can say, oh, this signature doesn't look good, or that date doesn't look good, or you didn't initial this. So yeah, anyone who wants to.
That's so nuts. It seems so undemocratic with a lowercase d. Like, why would you want people off the ballot? Why would you want to take away choice?
Yeah, that's a great question, my friend.
Welcome to America. All right. So, Jonathan, I know we caught you while you're out there on the road knocking on doors. So I want to let you get back to the good work with your local future constituents, hopefully. And I think we're going to have a longer conversation in the future when we get you back on the show. So everybody just consider this a little bit of a amuse-bouche for Mr. Herzog. And don't forget to donate to his campaign. And Jonathan, give him hell out there. Right, buddy?
I love you, man. I so appreciate it. And the one thing I'll say, we need Freedom Democrats running in districts across the country. There are primaries that are still coming up in September and October. And if you're in one of those districts, we need you to run. The Yang Gang has to put wins up on the board, because when Justice Democrats, when Bernie-crats run against challengers, they are quaking. They are so scared. We saw like Jessica Cisneros out in Texas. She narrowly lost 52-48, but they are paying attention. When they run candidates, they are paying attention. And so we got to be the same. We can do this. And that's just a Yang Gang across the country. There is nothing stopping you. The most unlikely candidate of all was this random guy named Andrew Yang. And look where we got him.
Indeed. Well, when we get you back on the show, Jonathan, we're going to have to get your tips for folks who are thinking about it, if not this cycle, in the future, what they should think about and how they should sort of plot their moves, because you guys out there that are running for office, under the Humanity Forward effort, you guys are the wave, man. You're making it happen.
We all are.
Amen, brother. See you later.
All right. Take care.
Goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds.
All right. So that was cool to get Jonathan on the show. He'll be back in more detail later. Let me just say hello to some of the nerds who are joining us. Hey, Dolores. Dolores is a long-time nerd. David's a former NYC resident. Yes, Ramirez. I've seen that name before. So thanks, everybody, for joining. I think what we're going to do next is we're going to look at some data. We are going to look at a lot of data. So if you are not into data, this channel may not be for you. But if you are, you have come to the right place. All right. So first, let's take a look at I think we should actually look at the primary, the Super Tuesday results, because we haven't had the chance to talk about that on this show. So let me just pull up the results. Obviously, everybody knows what happened, but there's some color there that we should talk about. So give me one moment to pull that up. Election 2020, and let's go here. Share screeny. Okay, let's pull up. Staying in the New York theme. Oh, by the way, for those of you who haven't read the news, Harris endorses Biden. Not a huge deal, in my opinion. I mean, I doubt she was going to go for Bernie. There's a little bit of that weirdness because she was pretty tough on Biden when she was running, but, basically consolidation behind Biden. Here's a look at the map of the results. One thing to note is that the total delegate count is not that far off in terms of what happened. Total delegates now looks like 628 to 545. And there's probably, I think, a little less than half of the delegates allocated. And you need 1,991. So we're still kind of, there's still a little bit of a dogfight to be had. But for sure, it was a big night for Biden. And here you have the look at the states. Clearly, in terms of number of states, I think Texas was probably the biggest surprise because of Sanders' strength with Hispanics in Nevada, rather. So that was a big win for Biden. And then California was clearly a big win for Bernie. One thing that I will talk about is how these results were heavily influenced by the exiting of. Oh, the dog has just opened the door. Hold on, let me let the dog out. I'll be right back. Yeah, sometimes Daisy doesn't want to hang out on the Nerds for Yang show. I think she wants to sleep. At any rate, so one of the things I want to call out about the Super Tuesday results was how influential the Buttigieg-Klobuchar exits were, and how the Warren non-exit was. So I know people have talked about that, but I had a little free time a couple days ago, so I ran some numbers. So let me just show you. Let me show you my spreadsheet. Here we go. Dino Manrique says, "Who let the dog out?" All right. Here. So this was on Super Tuesday, the rough kind of results. It wasn't with 100% reporting, but it was pretty close. And you can see Biden. Let me make it bigger. You can see here. Let me do full screen. Okay, Biden winning Texas, Alabama, Arkansas, and then Bernie picking up Vermont, Utah, California, Colorado, and then Texas being also picked up by Biden. And then you see what Bloomberg did and what Warren did. So these first four columns are kind of what happened, right? Then this Bernie star and Biden star is an alternate scenario where you ask yourself, well, what would have happened if Bernie had picked up 2/3 of the Warren votes and Biden had picked up 1/3 of the Warren votes? And the difference is what happens is you see, hold on, let me make this a little narrower. You see, sorry, we're doing spreadsheets on the fly here, but this is Nerds for Yang, so what would have flipped? Well, you see that Texas would have been a tie. So instead of a 33-30, you would have had a 37-37. That would have been kind of a big deal, and maybe Bernie would have pulled it out. Who knows? And then California would have been a very big win. Instead of 33, Bernie would have 41. He would have really cleaned up in Colorado. He would have won Maine. And then Massachusetts would have been a tie. So you see basically how close it would have been. It would have been basically, instead of Bernie only winning 4 states, he would have potentially won Texas, 4, 5. He would have won 7. They basically would have split the number of states, and he would have won California big time, Texas potentially, and Massachusetts potentially. So it could have been Bernie's night if you believe that Bernie would have picked up 0.66, so 2/3 of Warren's votes. And then if you look at, well, what about this one, Bernie Prime, which is what if he picked up 80%? Then he would have really run the table. He would have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 states, including California, in pretty much a landslide, 43-26. So then some people were like, oh, well, what about Biden? Bloomberg, since Bloomberg dropped out. So in fairness, I ran those numbers, and here it is. Bernie plus, so this is one where Bernie wins 2/3 of Warren voters and only a quarter of Bloomberg voters. And then Biden wins 1/3 of Warren and 75% of Bloomy. In that case, Biden would have had a very strong night. He would have won 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of the 15 Super Tuesday states. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting analysis because obviously Buttigieg and Klobuchar, the party insiders, did drop out, and Warren did not. So if you're a Bernie supporter and you're really getting aggro on Biden people, like, you really shouldn't. Because Buttigieg and Klobuchar decided to take one for the team. And frankly, Warren did not. So now there's a lot of people out there who are like, hey, you can't assume everyone that voted for Warren would have gone to Bernie. And I don't. I assumed in my model that 2 out of 3 would have, because she was a candidate of whatever, deep structural change or something like that. And so Bernie seems more of a structural change guy than Biden for sure. So anyway, that's sort of the Super Tuesday kind of math. But I also wanted to show you guys the exit polls for Super Tuesday to try and understand, like, well, how did Biden sort of pull out such a really interesting outcome? And here we're going to first look at some 538 numbers. Chrome. Here we go. Okay. So one takeaway from 538 is that late voters really made the big difference. So I think this underscores the effect of those surprise dropout announcements by Buttigieg and Klobuchar, and then Beto coming and campaigning with Biden. Like, there were a lot of people. And if you're undecided a couple days before and you see all of these well-known people say, I support Biden, I support Biden, I support Biden, and nobody's doing that for Bernie, then clearly it makes a difference. So if you look here for Biden, the difference in Minnesota between early and late voters was almost double, more than double, that he got 53% of late voters and only 24% of early. So clearly the Klobuchar suspension and endorsement mattered a lot. And then look at California, plus 27. So he only had 1/3 in early and then almost 2/3 late. Oh, sorry, that's Tennessee. California is still double, more than double. 19 early, 44 late. Now, this is where, you do wonder if Warren had dropped out and endorsed Bernie. Probably would have been an even bigger night for Bernie in California. Maine, from 22 to 47, on and on and on, right? Look, I mean, dude even got 43% of late voters in Massachusetts. Now, Sanders actually looks like in many states he had stronger early support than late support. So he had 45% of earlies, but only 19% of late. Pretty much every row here, Sanders has smaller late than early, except for nothing. That dude was really strong early, and then 2 days before something happened, and people didn't support him. So that's pretty cool. Let's see, what other data do we have? All right, here, who in terms of liberals versus conservatives and moderates, you have again, Biden having very strong late support. He probably had the biggest flip with very liberal, from 15% of very liberal people supporting him to a third of very liberal. Even with conservatives, he did better. With moderates, he did better. Somewhat liberals, he did way better. And then Sanders, from early to late, yeah, he took it most in the shorts, probably with, in terms of absolute numbers, with the very liberals. He had 54% of them, and then he only had a third for late voters. So, I mean, if you're Sanders and your base is very liberal and you're only getting a third of late deciders from the very liberal camp, that's a challenge. And I'm guessing some of those very liberals probably went to Warren, who's no longer in the race. White voters had the biggest last minute swing. So Biden, the black voters were pretty much with him early, stayed with him late. White voters were not with Biden early, big time with him late. Hispanics, he did made some progress there. I will say this is the one area where Sanders had some improvement, where he only had 17% black support early and 22% late. So that is the one area where Sanders made a little bit of progress. Clearly not enough. Ooh, wow, he lost Hispanic big time. He went from almost half Hispanic in the early voters to only a fifth, or, somewhere between a fifth and a quarter. So that was a tough couple days before Super Tuesday for Sanders. Trump approval rating, pretty much a little over half the country disapproves, and 43% approve of his job. And generic ballot, Democrats win over Republicans if you don't ask about the candidate. So that's the first 538 data. Then I found another one that was kind of cool, which is like, well, what happened to Warren? And so they have this pretty interesting poll around sexism. So let's take a look at that. Did sexism keep Warren from the nomination? So what they did was they did a survey of sexist terms, and they asked people if they agreed or disagreed with these sexist terms. And if you look here on the bottom, you have strongly disagree. And then over here, you have strongly agree with the sexist term. So you would assume to the right are the more sexist people. And for sure, people who strongly disagree with sexist terms, who I guess would be not sexist, or at least they strongly disagree with whatever sexist terms were in the survey, they tended to have very few people not supporting Warren. Most of the people were either were supporting Warren. And then if you go all the way to the right for the people who do agree with sexist terms, then you have a decent number who did not support Warren, although there were a lot of people in the middle who were kind of neutral who didn't support Warren. And then if you look at the height of the y-axis, I mean, it's pretty much 10%. It looks like here's 0.25. It's probably 0.125. So about 10% of people who, were pretty sexist ended up not supporting Warren. But we all know that Warren lost by more than 10 percentage points. So I'm not sure that sexism explains Warren's loss. I think it probably was a contributing factor. But if it were everything, you would see this massive number of people who were sexist saying, I don't support Warren. And that wasn't reflected in that data. So let's see. Oh, someone's asking about Corona. Oh, you guys want to talk about Corona? I'm happy to talk about Corona. I will, for sure. Give me 1 second. But let me get through Super Tuesday repercussions, and we'll get into Corona. All right. So that's that one. Then the Washington Post had a treasure trove of exit poll data from Super Tuesday. So let's enjoy. Wow, you guys really want to talk about Corona. All right. I'm going to get there. Hold on 1 second. Super Tuesday. Come on, guys. That was kind of a big deal. You're like, that's so last week. All right, here we go. Let's look at the exit polls. So who won? Where did Biden's support mostly come from? He killed with Black voters. 41-point advantage. With older voters, people who are opposed to single payer, late deciders, moderates, people who don't like socialism, who do care about race relations. And those are probably like the top groups that really delivered Biden a lot of his win. And then for Bernie, he killed with youngers. Big advantage with very liberal, decent advantage with kind of like middle age or approaching middle age, advantage with people who have a favorable view of socialism, who like single payer. His advantage with Hispanics was not that big, +9, similar to Biden's advantage with white voters. Here you see Black voter support. You see Biden really, I mean, holy mackerel. Dude had 58% of the Black vote in Texas. That was huge. Huge. Whereas, Bernie only had 15% of the Black vote in Texas. So that is a strong constituency for Biden. And certainly we saw that in South Carolina. And we definitely saw it like Alabama, 72%. Virginia, 69%. These are amazing numbers for Biden. Now, you do wonder, I know I'm going to draw some hate for this, so whatever. I'm just going to say it. Now, is Biden getting all this Black support because Biden's amazing? Or is Biden getting the Black support because he was part of the Obama administration and he's seen as sort of the successor? I don't know. I've never really thought of Joe Biden as like a huge kind of figure in the African-American community or for, Black voter rights or anything like that. Certainly before he became VP under Obama, he just seemed like, a moderate guy from Delaware. But anyway, that's that data. But there's more. But wait, there's more. Hold on. I lost my tab. Let's see. Hold on one second. Here we go. All right. Then best and worst. Where does Bernie have the biggest challenge? People who don't like single payer or socialism. Biden does very badly with young and very liberal. Bloomberg did well with moderates, older people who don't like socialism. He did really badly with young and liberals. Warren did well with very liberal, so that's probably why Sanders didn't do as strong with the very liberals like in California, as Warren was probably sucking up some of that very liberal vote. She also did really well with people who care about income inequality, and she does really badly with Black voters, moderates, and people without a college degree. Also not really great with Hispanics either. In terms of where the moderates and conservatives went, clearly Biden. What an interesting combo for Biden. He had basically won Super Tuesday on the backs of moderates and Black voters. Clearly, they did not go to Sanders, and they really didn't go to Bloomberg either. You would have thought Bloomberg would have picked up more of the moderate conservative. And then we talked about how all the last minute deciders went to Biden. That's kind of like the other data we looked at from 538. Hispanics, true, they did go to Sanders, but it wasn't like a blowout. It wasn't the way that like Sanders' advantage with Hispanics does not look nearly as strong as Biden's advantage with Black voters. In fact, Biden darn near picked up half of the Hispanic vote in North Carolina and Virginia. Warren definitely had trouble with the Hispanic vote. And then let's see. Yeah, and then we go demographics, male, female, pretty even on the males between Sanders and Biden, although females really tended to support Biden more than Sanders. Biden more than Bloomberg and Warren too, actually, female voters. Race, we talked about that a bunch. I don't think we need to talk. Oh, Asians. Dude, that's interesting. Bernie has huge support from Asian voters. I wonder why. That's interesting. I wouldn't have expected him to have such a big advantage. And then in terms of age, you talk about young people being big for Bernie, and then the older folks for Biden. Democrat versus Republican, Biden does very well with both Democrat and Republicans. Independents prefer Bernie. So this is where this number here, you wonder, oh man, is this going to bite us in the butt come the general election? Like, will we need these independents to win the general versus Trump? Because in that case, then Bernie might have been a little stronger. College graduates, Biden does better. No college, pretty similar. Still, Biden does better. We talked about last few days. All right. And then in terms of what issues you care about, Biden does better with people who care about race and healthcare. Well, that's interesting. That's really interesting because you would think Bernie's always talking about healthcare and Medicare for all. But if voters who cared about healthcare sided with Biden. So maybe those voters are saying, hey, I care about healthcare. Just kind of, put Obamacare on steroids. Don't throw out the whole thing. Biden did better on climate change. Bernie did better on income inequality. More people felt that Bernie agrees with them on major issues than Biden. So this is one of those things where you say, wow, are voters voting for who they agree with or who they think they can beat Trump? This number here suggests that they agree with Sanders more, but they we know from the outcomes that they went with Biden. Here, can beat Trump. You see that 43-22. So, what is this? This is single payer. Nothing surprising there. I think that's enough of these exit surveys. So hopefully that was kind of interesting to you. Let's see. Ooh, Nobody Project says I vote for Trump before I vote for Bernie. Well, maybe that's why a lot of people went for Biden. They were worried about that. Okay, so now we're going to go to polls for what the latest polls coming up, because guys, we have some more primaries coming. Specifically, let's take a look at the calendar here. So March 3rd, we have through the 10th, we have the Democrats abroad primary. I will tell you guys, if you are watching this and you're a fellow expat like me, an American citizen working overseas, participating in the Democrats abroad primary is super easy. You just go on the website and you give them your address where you were living before and what state you were registered in, and then you sign the ballot, and then you can just scan it and email it to them, or you can do it in person, or you can do it by post. So let me just put a little public service announcement there. If you are overseas, you can vote early. I already voted, frankly. Go to democratsabroad.org and you can get your ballot and vote. And if you were asking for a suggestion, I would encourage you to vote for Yang, because I think that's such a small little primary that if enough of the Yang gang, now of course you have to be living overseas. You can't just be in the Yang gang and crash this party. But if you are overseas Yang gang, please vote for Andrew or consider it, because if he has some surprising result and gets like second place, I think it'll be kind of fun, and it'll increase the stature of the Yang movement. All right, so that's the Democrats abroad plug. Now let's look at what's coming up. Probably the big one is Michigan on March 10th, which is really just a couple days from right now as we're live streaming. And that's 125 delegates. So let's see what the polls say in terms of who they expect to win. So let's see here. Let me show you the latest polls. Hold on. Whoopsie daisy. Share screen. Chromie. Here we go. So there aren't as many Michigan polls as I was hoping for. The last one looked like it was on Wednesday, March 4th, which frankly was probably like right after Super Tuesday and maybe included some of it. It's kind of sad that there isn't more polling data for Michigan. And at that point, you had Biden. I'm going to highlight it here for you guys. You had Biden ahead of Sanders, and Bloomberg picking up a decent amount, Warren a little bit. Now, if you assume most of that Bloomberg is going to go to Biden and Klobuchar and Buttigieg is going to go to Biden, then that's going to be a tough night for Sanders unless he surprises everybody. I think a lot of people are suggesting, well, Michigan really came out and saved Sanders when he was duking it out with Hillary last time. But I don't know. When I look at that poll, if you're losing, if you're Sanders and you're losing to Biden before when people were still supporting Buttigieg and Klobuchar and Bloomberg. That doesn't look good for Bernie. But you know what? This race has been so crazy. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Like, who would have expected Biden to have such a big night in South Carolina after getting his clock cleaned in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada? So anything's possible. Washington State looks like it'll be a strong night for Biden, but it pretty close. Like, see, now this is one where, you know, what would have happened had Warren endorsed Sanders? Who knows? Maybe she would have. Oh, God, I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on one second. Here we go. Washington State, 47, 44, 5. So you wonder, well, that's going to be close. We'll see. Missouri, not close. I mean, southern states with large African-American voting populations, I think is all in for Biden. Maryland, Sanders up by a little bit, but look, Bloomberg had 15. Buttigieg, Klobuchar had 9. So, I mean, nah, I think that's going to be a Biden show. And then, is Florida? No, Florida's not coming up. Florida's later. But Florida right now, you've got a strong outcome for Biden. So it would appear that this will be basically Biden's to lose. I don't see any states on what are they calling it? Big Tuesday. I don't see any states that suggest that Sanders is going to have a big win. Let's review what's coming up on Big Tuesday. Okay, you got Michigan. We just talked about that, where freaking Biden was leading before when Buttigieg and Bloomberg were still options. What's the next biggest state? Washington State. They're basically tied with Warren not endorsing Sanders, so that's probably not gonna. Maybe Sanders pulls out a win in Washington State. Who knows? Missouri, that's in the South. That goes to Biden. And then Mississippi, that's in the South. That goes to Biden. I don't know. Idaho, maybe. Who knows? North Dakota, but they're so small. That's not. I mean, if you're Bernie and you're behind, picking up a couple small states is not really going to do it for you. Now, Florida does have a nice big prize of 219 delegates on March 17th, but we saw the polls there showing that Biden's going to do really well, and he does well with older people. Yeah, so I'm thinking most likely we are going to have nominee Biden. I mean, the risk, of course, is that I am a little worried that Biden gets the nomination and chokes in the general election. He just has not seemed really sharp in those debates. Now, I will say that I looked at a recent video of him speaking because, you know, on Twitter, there's a lot of these, like even my MAGA family keeps sending me these clips of Biden, you know, kind of like stuttering or getting things mixed up. And I was like, wow, is he really that bad? Because with the way they cut these videos, they make him look like he's freaking incoherent. But so I pulled up a video that we can watch together now. And I think as much as I have concerns about Biden from his debate performance, if you look at his St. Louis, Missouri rally, let's see. I mean, I think, let me share audio. Forgot. Boom, 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 boom. Here, let's watch this together.
What a difference a week makes. This time last week, I was in South Carolina. They hadn't finished voting. And the press and the pundits had declared Biden's campaign is dead. But South Carolina had something to say about that. Then came Super Tuesday.
He seems
Today,
okay.
there's 11 victories behind us, and we lead in both delegates and the national vote. What I even, I ponder though is the incredible enthusiasm and excitement this campaign has generated, folks. Senator Sanders likes to say he'll need a record turnout to defeat Donald.
All right. So my conclusion there is like he seems put together. He seems like he had his Wheaties before that presentation. Now, of course, a short 5-10 minute rally speech when you're kind of got the wind at your back is going to be different than a slugfest with the Orange Man in either a debate or just daily kind of barrage of Burisma and Hunter Biden and Ukraine and where's the email server, blah, blah, blah. So I do worry that the one thing, as many of you guys know, I really, really have massive concerns about the fitness of Donald Trump for office. But I got to be fair. I got to be fair. Like, Trump is not an idiot. He's actually quite cunning and he's quite clever with sort of like getting underneath people's skin and kind of reading people. Like, is he like an Andrew Yang that gets into the details and nuance of the data and has, a CEO's problem solver's mind? No, that is not Trump. But can he get on your nerves and bully you and demean you? Yeah, he does that. He does that really well. I mean, that is one of his core competencies. And so I do worry, like, he's going to say all kinds of stuff. He's going to say, well, Biden doesn't have his fastball. He's forgetful. He's senile. He's corrupt, blah, blah, blah. So, but looks like he's going to be our nominee. So hopefully he looks more like what we just saw and not what Trump is projecting him as. And frankly, Fox News, I think, is already kind of echoing these talking points. So, and sadly, they are the number one source of news for American voters. But at any rate, let's move on to betting odds. What do the gamblers think? Okay, here we go. Gamblers think that Biden will be the nominee. They only give Sanders a 7% chance, and he was much closer before Super Tuesday, obviously. But they also don't think that Biden will win the general. This is not a good number. Now, we've always said, well, Trump will be over 50 because no one knows who the Democratic nominee is. But now that we pretty much have our nominee, I mean, look, if you take the Sanders 4% chance and you add it to the Biden 39% chance, that's 43.2%. That ain't great. I mean, that's basically they're saying they think the orange guy is going to get reelected. Oh, boy. That'll be interesting. So that's what the gamblers think. My God. What will he do if he is reelected and feels like that's a complete exoneration and a blank check to do whatever the heck he wants? Like, oh, God, like Ivanka and Jared and who's that little bald dude? The guy that does all his immigration stuff. Ugh, this just seems, oh my God, like unchecked. It's like the barbarians are running through the White House. Anyway, what about media coverage? What about the mainstream media? Who are they covering? So let's take a look at that. Here, You have, let's start at the top here. I know this is moving fast. Sorry, guys. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News mentions in the last few days, from after Super Tuesday to a couple days ago. It looks like it's the Biden-Sanders show pretty much. A little bit of Warren and Bloomberg probably when they dropped out. Here you have just a visualization of that. Interestingly enough, you have a little bit of Yang mentions. Not a ton, but a little bit. Less than Buttigieg and de Blasio and Gabbard and Harris. Yeah, media still is not giving Yang a lot of love. I guess luckily he's on CNN now, so that he gets a lot of kind of free coverage there. Not coverage, but free presence. Network TV looks like mostly Biden and a little bit of Sanders. And here's what it looks like over time. Basically, it's converging around Biden, Warren, Sanders, mostly the two of them. Online news, you have, again, Biden and Sanders. So if you're a Sanders supporter, there's actually more coverage for Sanders than you would expect for someone who might only have a 10% chance of getting a nomination. So it's like the Sanders, the media is like, looks like they're interested in keeping this thing going because they're talking about Sanders almost as much as Biden. And then in terms of chyrons, the little things on the bottom, it's even closer. Who's talking about Sanders the most? Who's this green one? CNN. Yeah. Okay. I almost thought it would be Fox, but no. So Sanders is still getting coverage, and yeah, I guess the media wants to keep it going. That's fine with me. I wish they gave our boy a little more coverage, but whatever. And then next, let's see. Oh, we're already at the hour mark. So I know you guys want to talk about. I know you guys want to talk about Corona. So let me skip this one. Okay, so we're going to now talk about just general topics, and I'm going to do also a reflections, like rants from my Twitter feed, because I find that my Twitter feed, I get pretty animated sometimes and talk about a bunch of stuff. So, but obviously it's only, whatever it is, 280 characters or whatever the limit is. So I figured I could just share and then also take questions if you guys have any topics. Before I do that, I do want to say a special thanks to the Nerds for Humanity members. So that's these guys are paying members of the channel. They support the operating costs, like the podcast storage fees, software that I use to make like this live stream, this light that I use so you can see me, this microphone, hardware, that kind of thing. So thank you first to Kristen Slevin. And then let's also thank she's the EVP level, the VP level. Let's thank Locke V, JM Sap and Fat, and hardcore level. Let's see, hardcore. Let's thank Ming, Mike, Chad, Felix, L, Bogart, Gene, Adrian, David, Tracy, DK. And then at the verified level, let's thank Sydney, our very first member, TY, John, Lisa, Brian, Sugar Sweet, Yes Ramirez, Lo Wang, Don, Brandon, Albert, Erez, Peter, Sophie, Your Momen, Hitachi, James, Johnson, Gail, Carlos, Sophia, Mike, and Shake and Make. All right. So thank you to all of those members. And now let's go on. And Nobody Perfect wants some more stats. Guys, I've been doing stats. I'm losing my voice. I got to do the Twitter stuff and then the general topics, including Corona. But if you subscribe to Nerds for Humanity, I got to change the branding. If you subscribe to Nerds for Humanity, formerly known as Nerds for Yang, you will get stats from me every week. All right, let's talk about Twitter, because I have been on a bit of a tear talking about a lot of things that I feel very passionate about on Twitter. So let me kind of just go over some of them and give you a little color commentary, including Corona. Yes, including Corona. Nobody Project, you were like fired up about Corona. Definitely, I'm talking about Corona. All right, this is weird. This is me watching myself live. Okay. All right, so here is me being angry at Trump, which is very common. He was at a press conference talking about the response to Corona, and he was saying, the people at the CDC are amazed at how, they're even like how I know so much. And what they don't know is that I had a super genius uncle who was an MIT professor. And he always brags about how he graduated from Wharton. And, I don't really think that your college should be the first thing people care about. But since he keeps bringing it up, let's be clear. He was a Fordham University student who transferred after 2 years at Fordham into Wharton. And he graduated with no honors. So he's not exactly a Rhodes Scholar. Whereas you've got people literally like Mayor Pete who were Rhodes Scholars, or Cory Booker was a Rhodes Scholar, or Andrew Yang, who went to Brown and has a law degree from Columbia. But at any rate, so it just gets under my nerves when Trump says he's such a genius and like he gives advice to the CDC because his uncle taught at MIT. Like, what the? Then there was me saying, hey, I've been seeing these clips of Biden misspeaking, and I'm worried that this is he's not going to last, that it's only March. But then I think watching that Missouri, I think I was influenced by some of those like really manipulated videos that are cut to make them look bad. Ooh, speaking of Corona, if you guys are not familiar with this amazing dashboard, let me just share it with you. Hold on. It's so cool. It's from Johns Hopkins, and it gives you like all the latest data. So here you can see there are 109,000 confirmed cases, mostly in China, but look at that. Italy, South Korea, Iran, France, and Germany, all over 1,000 cases. And given that most people don't get tested, this is probably undercounting. The US says it only has 484, but I don't think most people are getting tested. I think you have to get a doctor to request a test, and there's a difficulty with availability of test kits. But what's useful about this is the order of magnitude and maybe the ranking. And what you can see is that, wow, this is no longer, just a mainland China only thing. So if we look at the map here, whoops, this is the one I wanted. That didn't work. Hold on. I wanted to make this thing a little bigger. No, that's kind of lame. All right, well, you'll just have to, let's go back to this view. What you can see is that, yes, there's a whole lot of Corona in China, but you also see like we are in a global world. You've got it in Australia. You have it all up in the Middle East. What was that, Iran? Yeah. You have Europe, just everywhere in Europe. And then the US. I mean, there ain't a safe place to be in terms of maybe parts of Africa, but that's probably just a matter of time before it reaches Africa. So, yeah, you could go up into some colder climate, but you know, this thing's this cat's out of the bag. This horse has left the stable. You have 4,000 deaths or 3,800. A lot of recoveries. So this is an interesting chart here. This one shows you the number of people in mainland China that have it, and that has plateaued. You're always suspicious. These are self-reported numbers by the country. So, you know, maybe it's in China's interest to report that they have it under control. They appear to have it under control based on these numbers. The green is the total recovered. So it shows that lots of people who have gotten it recover and are fine. And then the yellow is non-China locations. And that the slope of that line does not appear to be flattening. So you could reach a point where there's probably more or as many people that have it in China as they do in the rest of the world. So that's my COVID. I'll give you guys the URL so you guys can find this. I'm gonna paste it here. I wonder if it'll let me. Yeah, hopefully that'll work for you guys. And then I'll also retweet it right now on my Twitter feed so you can see it. Okay, so now let's go back to more Twitter commentary here. Oh, this is another cool thing. Again, about Corona. Have you guys seen this Vox video that talks about why diseases keep appearing in China? If you haven't, again, go to my Twitter feed and you'll find it. They are presenting an argument that many of these viruses come from animals, and often that they come from like kind of exotic wild animals, and that in China, many of these animals are either caught from the wild where they have the virus, or they're actually bred in these very congested sort of agri-farming kind of like very unpleasant conditions for the animals. And it's probably not unique to China. I'm guessing there's probably other places that, you know, stick like a bunch of chickens in tiny little, you know, indoor thing, and they never see the light of day or whatever. But at any rate, you've got all these kind of unusual animals, sometimes wild, but then bred in these confined areas. And then they're sold at these wet markets where the animals are in these cages and they're stacked. And there's all this like liquid, like urine and pus and blood and stuff. It drips all over. And people are buying chickens and they're buying, you know, bats and, you know, goat and lamb and pig and whatever, you know, swine and all this stuff. And these markets and the sort of supply chain that that's preceding these wet markets are contributing to the spread of all these crazy viruses. So if that's true, I mean, first of all, you should check out that video. I thought it was a good video to watch. Let me give you guys a link to it here before I forget. Copy link. So you can check that out. Let's see. So that was interesting. And if that's true, I think we need to research this. But if it's true, then now here is a case where I think it would be a wonderful opportunity for President Trump to call BS on China and say, look, if you want to be part of the international community, you need to raise your standards on livestock hygiene, farming of animals, the butchering process, the distribution conditions, the hygiene of the places where people are buying this stuff. Like, you know, this is basically like America 100 years ago, probably, where like, you know, we had some crazy, probably livestock stuff. And I guess in some cases, like even today in America, like if you see some of the big chicken production areas, those chickens are like kind of strange and not super natural. But man, this is why I guess you also have the case where we have our issues with romaine lettuce and E. coli and all this stuff. But I would just say, look, China, if you have these crazy wet markets with these crazy animals and you have these crazy farms where you're breeding these things and they're all producing these crazy viruses, like that's not just your problem anymore. That affects everybody. And if you want to be part of the international community, you need to raise your game there. So anyway, that was that. Then I said, hey, you know, it's just interesting how people hates. A lot of people are like, oh, fake news, and I don't believe in climate change and scientists and all this stuff. But you know, when your life's on the line, you know, if you have this massive, you know, potential pandemic, what you want is you want someone who believes in science, who's a trained scientist, has ideally advanced degrees in public health and infectious diseases, that kind of stuff, like really leading the charge. You know, not Mike Pence, frankly, and not Donald Trump. And I get that Donald Trump's uncle once taught at MIT. It was very impressive, but that doesn't mean that I want to get my medical advice from him. Anyway, so that was that. Hey, by the way, is this Twitter commentary of any interest to you guys, or is this just kind of me rambling on? Because I'm happy to just take audience questions because I know we're running low on time. So I'm going to look in the chat and see if you want me to just take audience questions or do a few more Twitter commentary before we wrap up for this live stream. Let's see. I don't see anybody voicing an opinion one way or another. I'm not sure how to interpret that. Oh, Christy says, I like it. All right. Well, since you're the only one that, Christy Stacey, since you're the only one that's giving an opinion, we're going to keep going. Oh, Lemon and Lime's like, yeah, okay. And Brett's like, yeah, all right, okay. I'll do a few more. Useful info. Okay, Brett. Thank you. All right, good. I'm just glad you guys are still around. All right, now let's go on to the next tweet, which was, this was a study showing that when people receive universal basic income, they continue to work. And this is obviously what Andrew has been saying forever. But I thought it was interesting because it was from Frank Luntz, who's like the kind of famous Republican pollster. And just goes to show you how UBI may be becoming more mainstream a little bit every day. So thank you, Andrew, for doing that. And then again, Frank saying, hey, this guy's ideas are going to get taken a lot more seriously over the next 4 to 8 years. So hell yeah. Yang 2024, baby. Let's do that shit. Can't wait. Oh my God. I wish he didn't drop out, but I think given what we looked at Super Tuesday, I think we would have been swept up in the moderate convergence. Oh, this was really interesting where somebody was posting. Basically, there was a Vietnamese person who was supposed to go to a business conference. And they got this note from someone who was hiring this person to help at the marketing booth or whatever, right? And they basically said, look, we can't get your help at the fair because your presence as an Asian person would create hesitation on the part of the audience to enter the exhibition space. So obviously that's kind of racist because most Asian people do not have the coronavirus. In fact, as we know from the data, it is what is the number? Oh, hold on a second. There will be as many people who are not from China that have the coronavirus as there are that are from China. Furthermore, even though there are 80,000 cases in China, there's like 1 billion people there. And then there's also Asian people who live outside of China who have never been to Wuhan or China. Like I myself have not been to China since 1996 during my, or 95, during my study abroad year. So I'm unlikely to have it, although I do live north of Italy. So that might be it. So at any rate, that was a pretty interesting tweet. Let's go back. Then there was this one. Where was it? Oh, this was a video of a bunch of people assaulting this Asian dude. This dude with the backpack, with the black backpack and the gray jacket, got his ass kicked. Now, who knows? Maybe he said something offensive. Like, you never know with these videos, but I was like, whoa, I hope this isn't where we're going, This has happened on the Philadelphia subway train. Maybe he sneezed or something. I'm not sure what he did, but I was like, oh man. Now I will say I've had personal experience with this. I was traveling a couple weeks ago with my wife and kids, and I had not a bunch, but there was someone on the street who basically told us to go away and that they didn't want to get the coronavirus. And that did kind of suck for my kids because I felt like they were made to feel like less than human. And then my brother's daughters, one of my nieces also had someone at school, like they bumped into each other, and then the older boy said, oh, now I'm going to get the China virus. And I mean, this was in like a very posh school in London. And then what else? One of my brothers also had something happen to him in Florida. So yeah, man, this is it, man. This is what happens in a mindset of scarcity and fear. I think someone was saying they were not going to eat at Chinese restaurants anymore. I was like, I'm pretty sure that General Tso's chicken, that chicken probably comes from Costco. At any rate, let's see. This was about Pence saying that they have enough, or the president saying that they have enough tests for everybody who wants it, and then Pence saying that we don't. So whatever. Basically, the White House is a little out there. This is basically Trump talking about cutting entitlements. This is like the delegate count, me saying like, hey, it's not done yet. Although I think we know from the polls that it's looks like it's going to be hard for Sanders to close that gap. This is, Spider-Man made this cool little video where like it's like a Batman thing. Because what I did was I said, hey, if anyone's running for Congress and supports UBI or democracy dollars, let me know, man. I wanna be helpful, and I can help you find some data, or I can, whatever, just be useful. And so one of the things I did for Heidi for Oregon was I put together. Let me show you my spreadsheet. I put together this little spreadsheet because Heidi was saying, like, hey, do you know how many people will have their jobs affected in the 1st District of Oregon? So let me see if I can find that little model I made. Here we go. Share screen. So what I have here, this is for the District 1 of Oregon. And what I did was, it's just a very simple kind of, spreadsheet. But what you start off with is you have the population of the 1st District of Oregon, which is 844,000. And I just picked that up from Wikipedia. And then I found the census to talk about how many people are working age. And that was 65%. So you multiply 65% by 844, you get 548. And then I found the Oregon statewide labor participation rate, which is about 60%. So then you get 329,000 workers who are in the 1st District of Oregon of working age, participating in the labor market. And then you look at the McKinsey Global Institute study that predicts that 30% of American workers will either need to get new jobs or learn completely new skills in the next 10 years. And so then you basically arrive at almost 100,000 people in Heidi's district. Heidi is used to be the Lesbians for Yang, and now it's Heidi for Oregon. But I think she's still lesbian for Yang as well. At any rate, so for her district, about 100,000 people will have their jobs affected. And then I think I ran the numbers for the 5th District of Oregon. And there, I think we got to 80,000. So at any rate, that was a long description of Spider-Mang's cool. So I said, hey, look, man, if anybody needs help, hit me up. I can run numbers. I can find data. I can try and present like arguments about why UBI is not socialism, blah, blah, blah. And so he's like, oh, yeah, man, it's like a nerd sign, like a bat signal. Okay, let me go back. Then, you can tell I'm really, really kind of disturbed by Trump. He apparently hired another college senior for some role. What did he hire them for? He hired a 22-year-old Iowa State University senior to be the deputy White House liaison to the Department of Commerce. And I was just like, man, you're the guy that said you're going to hire the best people. Like, what happened to Mattis, and where's Kelly and Cohn and Tillerson, like all these wise people? Maybe you don't agree with their policy, but those dudes were serious. Then I tweeted again about Trump. He's on his 4th chief of staff. Dude's only been in office for like a little over 3 years. Crazy. Freaking A. So yeah, like Mulvaney is no longer his chief of staff. Lavender's asking a question. Why would you be against Trump more than against Biden? I have lots of concerns about Biden, mainly around his clarity of thinking and his just horsepower. But I really find that Trump is like a narcissist. And I feel like he doesn't put the interests of the country ahead of his own. And to me, that's like the most dangerous quality of all. Like I'd rather have like kind of a, middle of the road Joe, literally, than a Donald Trump who, like, I mean, he's done a lot of crazy stuff, and he seems kind of impulsive, intemperate, and divisive. And these are not things that I personally think I want in a president. But I get how a lot of people don't like Biden either. And there's a lot of Yang people who are going to vote for Trump over Biden. And I get that. I don't agree with it, but I get it. There's Heidi. So she's trying to raise money. So Heidi2020.com. Wow, nice domain. So if you want to donate to her, I've already donated to her, and she's going to be on the show in the future. And then I had the Spanish stuff with Evelyn. There's a Spanish like here. Oh, you guys won't be able to hear it. Hold on. If you ever wanted to know what Evelyn Yang sounds like, habla español. Here you go. Hold on.
El dividendo de la libertad es una de las razones por las que dejé que Andrew se presentara. Me encanta porque significa que...
Yeah. So obviously I was not planning on Andrew suspending after New Hampshire. So I had a bunch of work with Spanish videos in production that were going to lead up to Super Tuesday. But then obviously after he suspended, I deprioritized that. But we got it done. We're actually going to get better versions because some of the translations were just so. All right. I think that's enough of the Twitter commentary. With that said, I'll take a couple questions if you guys have any topics you want to hit, and then we'll wrap it up. Any questions for me or anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to? I think we hit the Corona stuff pretty well. Basically, one thing to keep in mind is that the mortality rate is only around 2 to 3% as far as we know at the moment. So if you got it, like most likely you won't die. And it's usually older people, 60 plus, that are the most at risk with underlying conditions like smokers. So there's that. But please remember to wash your hands a lot. That's probably the best thing you can do, and work from home if you have a cold or if you have the ability to work from home. Okay, let's see. I think there are no questions. So I think we're going to wrap. A day is saying 2. Yeah, it is not a small number. It's way bigger than the flu. But probability is if you got it, you would not die. Now, I know people would want a much more stronger number than you probably won't die. But let's keep it in perspective. And then, Ward wants to know about International Humanity Forward mission. I think if the Humanity Forward effort takes root and gets real results in the US, I mean, then we would be an example for the rest of the world. Wouldn't that be great if America could be like the city on a hill again? So I think their focus is on US results. And if it worked here, then, in the US, then hopefully other countries can adopt it more. And I also think folks like Herzog and Heidi, like who are running on a Freedom Dividend platform, please support them, because you know what? Like, we went for the gusto. We went for the best job ever with President Yang. Now, we didn't get that, but Congressman Herzog, Congressman Heidi, like, that's not that crazy. Like, we could do that. And that's how it starts. So these congressional candidates are the wave that we've been waiting for. So if you can, please support them and donate to them. And we'll get some Yang Gang in the Congress. I'm pretty sure we'll get at least one. And wouldn't that be cool? That's how it starts. How is living in Switzerland? Well, you know what? It's kind of crazy because we are north of Italy and share a border with Italy, and we are part of the Schengen kind of movement treaty. So Switzerland actually has a decent number of corona cases. Other than that, I had a great time today. I rode mountain bike through the forest with one of my sons, and then the day before had a beautiful hike through the forest with the dog and the two boys. So yeah, Switzerland's great. Although I'm moving back to America in July, and funnily enough, when we were planning the move, I told my wife, like, well, you know what? Maybe we'll end up in DC, because I was thinking, well, if Yang became president, maybe there's something I could do to help with the administration. But obviously, that's unlikely to happen. So we will be moving to California in July. So if any of you guys are in the Bay Area, we should do a Nerds for Humanity gathering at some point. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Rockus wants Yang Gang in Congress. I do too. So I think we're gonna wrap up. Thank you everybody for joining tonight or today, where you are. And please be safe. Wash your hands 30 seconds. Don't just like rinse a little water, like with soap and water. Wash it good. When you sneeze, please sneeze like deep into your elbow. Don't like spray it out. Avoid handshakes. Little elbow bump is fine. And if you are feeling under the weather, like, please don't go to the office. Don't be a hero. There are a lot of, and if you can work from home and your boss is cool with it, like, that may not be a bad idea. So hope everybody's safe, and we'll get through this. And maybe in a year or so, we'll have a deployable vaccination. And in the meantime, we'll just kind of contain it as much as we can. All right, folks, keep it real. Goodbye, nerds.